Special live edition of S&L. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. A couple hours removed from DeMeco's press conference, he addressed one of the controversies, which I just saw on ESPN. They're kind of reacting to it as well. A suspension for Azeez Al-Shaair is expected. I think it's warranted. I thought it was a dirty hit. That doesn't mean that I don't understand and respect his point of view and how difficult it is for a defensive player in that type of situation or anything like that. I just think it was a dirty hit. I think that it deserves a suspension. I think it deserved an ejection. What were your overall thoughts before we hear from DeMeco Ryans and before we talk about just the extra layers that I think could emerge from what the head coach of the Texans had to say? What are your overall thoughts on the Azeez Al-Shaair controversy, I guess we can call it?
I don't believe he could have avoided contact at all. Like, I believe he's going to contact Trevor Lawrence in some way, shape, or form, just based on where it looked like he was starting to break down. Lawrence is a bigger quarterback. The players usually go lower on bigger quarterbacks. I don't believe he was avoiding contact with Trevor Lawrence. Did he need to lead with the arm-braced arm and, go elbow, forearm first into the upper body and ultimately the head and drive it into the ground? Probably not. And that's probably where the suspension is going to be. And that's probably where the excess is going to get pointed out is, hey, we feel like you were going to make contact with the guy. It's probably just a fine if you don't lead with the forearm and go into the upper chest, neck, face with that forearm. That's where I feel like perhaps Azeez could have made some adjustments. I feel like he was going to contact Lawrence and get a flag no matter what. But the excessive nature of forearm shiver and then kind of driving the guy down, that's where I feel like he's going to get in the most trouble. That's where I feel like people probably had the most problem with the hit. Because if he just, if he just contacts him like a normal hit, like not like with the forearm leading, yeah, it's a penalty. Maybe the Jaguars still act that way. Because it is a hit on their quarterback as they feel like he should have slid. But to me, the extra with the arm is where Azeez gets in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree on that. I think there's 3 point of views here that we'll get to and that DeMeco will address. We were at the press conference. It is a locker room. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along my channel, Cody's channel, S&L every morning. We also have it's in podcast form as well. So subscribe, Locker, Stoots, Texans on any podcast platform from StreamYard to Apple. I think there's 3 point of views. I think there's Azeez Al-Shaair's point of view. I think there's the quarterback / rule point of view. And I think there's the point of view of the Jacksonville football team. And we'll get to all 3 of those. I think DeMeco completely neglected one of them. But we'll get to that. But first, let's hear the initial question to DeMeco Ryans about this whole thing. Here's the head coach of the Texans. Just the obvious, like, what did you make of the situation type of question? Less than or about 24 hours after everything happened in Jacksonville.
With the entire Azeez, situation, we stand behind Azeez and everything, that came from that. Of course, he unfortunately hit on the quarterback. But it's also, it's twofold, right? I mean, a lot of the quarterbacks in this day and age, they try to take advantage of the rule where they slide late and they try to get an extra yard. And you're a defender, a lot of onus is on the defender, right? Whether it's on the sideline or where it's on the quarterback, you don't know what a guy is thinking. You don't know if a guy is standing up and he's continuing to run. You don't know. And then you get a late slide and you hit the guy. Unfortunate that Trevor got hurt. We hope Trevor is okay, but it's also, if we're sliding, we have to get down. If we're getting out of bounds, we get out of bounds, and that rule is there to protect the quarterbacks, and we want our quarterbacks to be safe in the league, so we just have to be safe. If we're sliding, make sure we're keeping our heads down. So, and the entire thing is, Azeez hits the guy, but their sideline overreacts, and it turns into a melee. It wasn't our guys, it's their team overreacted, pushed our guy, dragging our guy to the sideline. So that's uncalled for on that side. We have to be better on the sidelines as well with both teams.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack there from DeMeco Ryans. The first point of view that we mentioned was the Al-Shaair point of view. I understand completely the mindset you have to be in to play that position. Just the danger and the rush and how wired up you have to be to have 300 pounders trying to take your head off. And they can basically do whatever the hell they want to you. And then you have receivers and running backs trying to run past you. Also, some of them trying to block you as well. And then the quarterback, you have to basically be aware and you have to treat them differently than 300 pounders and wide receivers are trying to treat you. And that's hard, man, especially with something going that difficult. So I get what he is saying there. I still think that he has the instincts and I think he has the wherewithal to be able to let up on that hit for sure. But I understand what he's saying there. And it is definitely, I think it's well-known fact that the NFL sides with the offensive player more so than the defensive player in multiple ways. So from that point of view, I think DeMeco's kind of got that covered. And I don't disagree with what he's saying there.
Yes, look, the onus is on the defender to make it not be a massive hit. There is nothing that is on the quarterback to not make it a massive hit. It is all up to the defender to adjust and to not make it a massive hit. The quarterback can start his slide whenever he starts his slide, but the onus is on the defender, fair or not. That's the way it works. Like that's how you have to, that's how the rule is legislated. That's how it's enforced. That's how the officials call it in the game. That's how the league office works off of it. Like it's up to the defender to not make it a massive, dangerous hit.
Yes. So that's point of view. That's point of view one. Point of view two, and DeMeco brought this up, and I kind of asked him, like, what would your solution be on the whole situation? Here was the question I had for DeMeco, and it was really just as simple as, okay, well, what is your solution? Because I don't know what the solution is, quite honestly, when it comes to the whole slide thing and all that. But what would the solution be? Here was what DeMeco had to say about that.
It's just have to look at all sides, right? And we don't have to overreact just because I think a guy gets hurt. We're not intentionally trying to hurt anyone. I think there's an overreaction when someone gets hurt, but we just have to look at it all from all perspectives.
Okay. And
basically, don't have an offensive guy rule this for an offensive players. I feel like what he kind of said. Kind of like he wanted someone to have, like, the defense to have a voice in how difficult that situation is.
Right. But
I do think a player getting hurt from it matters, though. I don't think that should be dismissed from it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tough because from like a rule standpoint, the only thing that I've seen, and I'm not saying this is the only good idea, it's just like what's crossed my eyes. I think Seth has a good point where if you're going to slide, then start it like back instead of where their body part first hits or something like that. Like however you decide to spot it's whenever they start sliding. Hell, we saw Kenny Pickett, and I thought this was garbage at Pittsburgh, kind of try to slow up and fake slide and then go in the end zone. And I thought it was just a ridiculous play. The other thing though, that I do want to be fair, because I try to understand both points of view. I don't think Trevor Lawrence was really doing that. Like he slid short of the first down. I don't think Trevor Lawrence was doing that. It was 2nd and 7. I think he was just trying to get short of the first down. So I don't think this was I think Mahomes has gotten really out of control with it. Like I think Mahomes, honestly, if I were a linebacker, I would take Mahomes' head off with the way that he does, with the way that he handles this stuff. And once he gets close to the sidelines, I think he's playing with fire, but I don't think Trevor Lawrence really does that.
Mahomes and Allen have a sideline rep, like how they'll look like they're going to go out of bounds and then they extend it a little bit extra. I can remember DeMeco Ryans talking about that ahead of the Buffalo game, where he says, hey, you never know if this guy's actually going out of bounds, so you got to play through. Do I think Lawrence slid in the area where he thought he could get a first down? Absolutely. I feel like that's what he was trying to do. He was not running off, taking off, and then sliding with the intention to not get the first down. So he slid when he
I
thought
think
he needed to.
I think he was sliding first. He knew he started the slide back. I think he knew he was going to be short. He was trying to avoid the hit.
I feel like he slid thinking he was getting the first down. Like I feel like
I thought he was trying to avoid the hit.
Because if he was trying to avoid the hit, then he should have started sliding as soon as he saw the defenders. Like he could have started sliding another 2-3 yards back.
Yeah. I think as far as the rules though, I don't know how you change the rules, but as far as like the way in which you decide fines and stuff, you disagree. You think that whether they get hurt or not should come into play on the hit.
Yeah, I mean, look, if a guy gets hurt in a regular football play because and you want to find that, like we've seen some kind of goofy fines for, like they find this guy $10,000 for a hit out of bounds or something, and the guy's okay. Like this play, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play for the rest of the season or he's not going to be able to play, like I think that matters a little bit in the legislation of the suspension, does it not?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't know what the solution is from the.
I guess some people could say, well, Lawrence didn't get to play the rest of the game, and neither did Azeez because he got ejected, and that may be fine for some people. And I can certainly understand that viewpoint.
Yeah. POV 3, and let's revisit what DeMeco said about the Jags. And this was kind of the one where I kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. This was the Jags' point of view. This was DeMeco Ryans talking about how the Jags handled this whole situation after Azeez did what he did.
Azeez hits the guy, but their sideline overreacts, and it turns into a melee. It wasn't our guys; it's their team overreacted, pushed our guy, dragging our guy to the sideline. So that's uncalled for on that side. We have to be better on the sidelines as well with both teams.
Okay. So my question would be this, and we were there, and maybe this was kind of a follow-up question that perhaps should have been asked by me, I guess, maybe. But I do wonder how would you, like, let's say CJ Stroud slides like that and Devin Lloyd hits CJ Stroud in the same manner. Are you going to then, like, if you're DeMeco Ryans, like what would be the appropriate reaction for your squad in that situation? Like, should they just chill? Should they just relax? What would be the appropriate reaction would be my question. Because this is where, and we've discussed the Trevor Lawrence, Azeez Al-Shaair thing, and we can disagree on that. But I actually thought the most appropriate thing was the way in which the Jags reacted, from Evan Ingram pushing Al-Shaair to the sidelines getting crazy. I would rather see that. That's the reaction I think you want to see whenever your quote franchise quarterback gets hit on the sideline. So I would wonder, like, what would you want to see if you're DeMeco Ryans?
So the way DeMeco answered the question, I don't know what he would want to see. Because we hear nonstop about, especially offensive linemen, go protect your quarterback. They take a late one or a cheap one, go get you some back, let them know you're there. Like we hear that about the NFL all the time. I did not feel like the Jaguars surrounded Azeez Al-Shaair and brought him further into their sideline. Like that's not what I felt like happened. I felt like there were two masses, and because they're pushing and shoving, it just ends up over on the sideline. At that point, are there a lot of extra Jaguars who weren't involved in it? Yes, there are. So maybe for DeMeco Ryans, it should have been just the players on the field. Maybe. I'm just trying to put myself in DeMeco Ryans' shoes. I know what Cody Stoots wants. Cody Stoots wants the entire team involved, just like the Jaguars were, and I'm taking attendance too. I'm taking attendance on who does and doesn't get involved. Like, that's how I would feel about it if it was CJ Stroud. I'd be seeing, hey, what's Laramie doing? What's Titus doing? What's Shaq Mason doing? Did this guy come off the bench for it? Like, I'd be taking attendance on who got involved in the scuffle if it was CJ Stroud. That's how I think about it. For DeMeco, maybe he only wants the players that were on the field. Hey, the O-linemen do a little pushing and shoving. The D-linemen do a little pushing and shoving. Maybe he didn't want the sideline involved. Okay, I guess. The play happened right in front of their sideline. Like, they were pissed.
Yeah, and I don't think Azeez was shying away from the smoke either. I think he kind of wanted a little bit of the smoke too, and that's the other thing. It's they overreacted. Well, I think Azeez probably didn't handle himself perfectly. Like when Will Anderson has to help you get off the field, I think there's that. And again, that's understanding that it's difficult position for Azeez Al-Shaair. That's understanding a Trevor Lawrence thing, but I don't think that the Jags sidelines overreacted. That reaction seemed appropriate for me. And the thing about the DeMeco thing that I think maybe we're starting to learn is it's not he's not really about other people's points of view. He's really just about his teams, which some people say is great and some people say that's good, but it's really just I think if the shoe were on the other foot, I think he would be defending CJ and he would be defending the reaction of the Texans. Like I think that's what we've come to realize is that you can say he's a player's coach, and I don't disagree with that, but I think players coaches function in different ways. I think there's some players coaches who wouldn't say the Jags overreacted. I think they would say we understand the reaction. Hell, even Azeez said it, like so. Like
his
even
apology on
his,
social media.
I mean, the guy that was in the skirmish said he understood their reaction. So I mean, like that's kind of telling. But I think DeMeco's going to go above and beyond to defend his guys no matter what. And I think even the Mixon hip drop tackle earlier this year. Like I don't know that he was just saying it's a bang bang play if the shoe's on the other foot. So I think that's the thing about DeMeco Ryans is that he's going to defend the guys no matter what, and he's not really interested in the other point of view. It's going to be defending his guys no matter what. I actually thought he handled it better yesterday than he did when he had a night to sleep on it, which is kind of crazy, isn't it? Usually it's the opposite. I actually thought he handled it better yesterday than he did today.
So will there be any repercussion because of what DeMeco had to say about this?
Well, if I'm in charge of the suspension, I'm leaning a little higher. Like and that's just petty ass me. But if I'm in the league office and I saw Al-Shaair's apology, I thought that was perfect. I think if I'm looking at that, I'm saying okay, that's perfectly done. But this is petty ass me. This is just me. But if I'm in charge of the suspension and I hear DeMeco Ryans say we didn't do anything wrong and the Jags overreacted and it's about the rules and the league and all that type of stuff. I mean, I'm leaning 3 or 4.
Now, to be fair, he condemned the hit.
Yesterday, he condemned it a little bit more than today.
Sure.
Yeah, today he really just kind of defended everything. I mean, today he just basically said, I stand by everything.
He called it an unfortunate hit again today.
Yeah, unfortunate hit for sure. It's unfortunate, but that's not what we teach or anything like that. We didn't hear that. And again, it's fine, but I just think we're learning. And this is the other element of it. And I think this needs to be addressed as we talk about this football team, because we follow this football team a lot. And I get the payoff. And there's a notion, you ride with your players and all that. I think some guys ride with their players and they don't go over the top to justify. We see it with the offensive line, where the offensive line performs poorly. It's like, let's focus on the positives, and there's a negative. But here is David White first on the super. He says, I agree with Cody. Got to have that dog mentality in the moment. Also, DeMeco obviously is not going to say what he really wants to say to avoid a fine. That's cool. I mean, I like Azeez Al-Shaair. I like his makeup, and I like how he plays. I don't know that DeMeco really lean to avoid a fine or anything like that.
I mean, I don't know that. I mean, maybe he held back the true way he wanted to say it, but the sentiment was not held back. He feels like Lawrence slid late, and the defender didn't have any other choice but to do what he did. That's the gist that I got from what DeMeco said.
Yeah, and I get that. But here's the other thing that I think is interesting, and this is from Joshua K. Who says our reputation is toast. I think that's a little dramatic, and it's because we are blaming an unconscious player, pathetic behavior by all of us. We need to mature and start holding people accountable. Okay, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Here's the thing that I do wonder, because first, I'm just going to ask you a question before I get to this point. What do you? Why do you think DeMeco has this approach? Because I think it's pretty simple. I think he's just going to defend his guys no matter what. I think that's DeMeco's approach. I don't think there's any like romanticism. I know John Crumpler, who writes for you, HOU football, he tried to make it like some sort of chess match. I thought that was a little bit much. I don't think there's like some sort of like mysterious thing. I think it's as simplistic as I am a football coach. I am a leader of men, and I'm going to defend those men no matter what, because they're my guys, and I love these guys. I think it's that simple. Do you think there's like any other deeper meaning to DeMeco defending his guys?
I feel like that covers it. I would tell you that because of what DeMeco Ryans did in the NFL, he played linebacker. He maybe went a step further than some coaches would have.
Okay.
In the defense of another linebacker.
Okay.
Like, I don't, if this situation is reversed and Doug Peterson's having to defend Devin Lloyd, he probably doesn't go and say, yeah, CJ Stroud should have slid a little bit earlier.
Right.
Like, that probably doesn't come up. But I believe he was going to defend Azeez Al-Shaair and his team no matter what. And then maybe he went a little bit extra because he was a linebacker. He knows how difficult the position is, and the player involved is a linebacker.
Okay. So you think the linebacker thing adds a little more element to it. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Keep the passion going. Don't get repetitive, and don't like have straw man arguments, but just keep it rolling. If something pops up, then we'll bring it up, but we don't need to get like crazy in there. You can get your stuff in.
I think Antonio Pierce would have the exact same reaction that DeMeco Ryans had.
I disagree. I think he would probably say that there's no that was a rough hit. I think we would get a little more condemning of the hit. But I get what you're saying.
I also think Dan Campbell would say the same thing, even though it's not a defensive guy.
Perhaps. Here's my thing though, with this whole thing, and this is the A word that we've brought up a lot. Is there accountability problem with the Texans? And I'm asking this because you had the sideline incident in Chicago with Azeez Al-Shaair, where DeMeco kind of minimized it. The offensive line, they don't really get criticized. And the team is not disciplined when they step on the football field. Like it's not a disciplined football team. Like one of the biggest knocks of the DeMeco Ryans era, if you look at penalties, I think they were tops in the league last year, and I think they're top 5 this year. Now Sunday there were only 3, which was as good as it gets for this squad. But it's not a very disciplined football team. So can there be kind of an accountability problem where you're loving up on the guys too much? And I'm not talking about flipping the table or anything like that. I'm just saying it'd be one thing if they went up there and they were just like the most disciplined team in the league, and you weren't seeing, like even yesterday, that Cade Stover penalty against a good team that kills a drive and takes away your first opportunity to get points. It can be a pretty big deal. And it seems like it's one of those things. Like, is there a problem when it comes to accountability and discipline on this football team?
Publicly, when he talks about it, he does not hold every player to the same standard. The defense gets held to a little bit different standard than the offense. But I wonder if that's just because that's his side of the ball. If he was an offensive guy, would he hold the defense to a different standard?
SG Lessons says, why are we even talking about this? Because it's the top, one of the top 3 stories in football right now, and it's local. I mean, why? What do you think? Bubba Homeschool, if Trevor stayed in the game, we would have won by 20.
Damn.
Mac Jones is efficient and made the Jags run the ball, which is what they should do. So you're basically saying that.
Well, yeah, they ran the ball in that first drive, but then they didn't run the ball after that. Mac Jones diced up the defense.
So he's saying that Mac Jones is better than Trevor Lawrence. How about that? I thought it was funny. What? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't believe they have an accountability problem. I just believe they have a talent issue. I don't believe he's not trying to hold these guys accountable. I just believe that some of these guys that you're having to try to hold accountable just can't do it.
Well, do you think they're a disciplined team? Like maybe not accountability. Maybe accountability is the wrong word, but would you say that watching this team the last 2 years, regardless of success, would you say they resemble? Like if you never listened to a word DeMeco Ryans said, you never heard anything about the Texans, and you were just locked in a room and you had to watch every single Texans game for the last 2 years of the DeMeco Ryans era, would you describe this as a disciplined football team?
Overall, no. On defense, I would, yes. But
that's a good point. That's a really, really good point.
They have far too many special teams penalties. I think Tennessee is a great example of special teams penalties. The special teams penalties are more prevalent this year than previous years. And I wonder if that's a rotation of players because they're having to move guys in and out of those spots. And then offense, they lack discipline on offense.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well. That's very, very well said. I mean, as the overseer of the defense, it's you wish you could spread the way in which this defense is coached throughout the team. So I agree with you on that. How long do you think the suspension is going to be for Azeez Al-Shaair? If you had to guess, let's guess the suspension.
I believe he will get 2 games and it will get reduced to 1 game.
I think it's going to be 3. I think he's getting 3. I think they're going to really, really come hard at him. I think that all of a sudden, like, the reemergence of punching Roschon Johnson on the sidelines, I think that kind of gets factored in. And I think we're talking probably 3 games. I think we're talking about a 3-game suspension.
Perryman got 3 last year for a repeat offender, correct? Okay, so he got 3 last year. I don't know like what level you have to get to be considered a repeat offender.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Azeez got fined for the punch. They didn't see it in the game, so he didn't get thrown out, but he got fined for the punch.
I think it's getting appealed down. I think it could get appealed down to 2. I think if it's 2, it could get appealed down to 1, but if it's 3, I think it gets appealed down to 2.
The guy that's in charge of this is a former offensive tackle. It's John Runyon.
John Runyon from the Philadelphia Eagles. Mean SOB. There is some irony in that. That was a dirty player.
Yeah, played for the
Eagles.
Oilers and then the Eagles and then finished with the Chargers. Was an all-pro in 99, Pro Bowler 2002. Like, I mean, he's a big nasty football player. Like, so maybe there's this isn't a wide receiver trying to legislate this. Like, this is a guy that played a more physical
It's a suit.
position.
It's a suit, though.
It is a suit. It is a suit.
It's a suit. So I think that's that.
I do think the hand wringing about head injuries and big hits is sort of it's not its peak like it was a few years ago.
Yeah, that was pandering, and that was the worst movie of all time, by the way. That Will Smith performance. And he cried that he didn't get a Oscar or whatever the hell it's called.
Well, he ain't ever going back to the show. So make all the movies you want. They're not letting you win that one anytime soon.
For the Chris Rock slap.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
So we'll see how it goes. The Texans right now, they got the bye week. One of the top topics in football and a topic for
one thing we haven't talked about here. Is there any worry that some team takes a cheap shot at CJ Stroud?
I mean, the chances increase, right? I mean, it increases when you do that. I think I saw, was it Zerline yesterday who said that this increases, puts your quarterback in more danger, whether he realizes it or not. Zerline was pretty fired up about this. McClain is still talking about it. Like
McClain does not feel like, but McClain feels like football DeMeco and Coach DeMeco acted differently about this.
Yeah, he said that if that had happened to Schaub, he would have been fighting someone, but yeah, don't know.
I wonder if maybe there was a conversation with the officials or conversation from Doug Peters. Like, there wasn't any sort of extra, it felt like, to where you'd be like, hey, these guys are trying to get back on somebody.
Dude, Doug Peterson barely defended him. I feel like Doug Peterson was. You want me to translate what Doug Peterson said at his press conference? Did you hear what Doug Peterson said?
I did not feel like the Jaguars rode very hard for Trevor Lawrence, to use a common term here.
Yeah, let's get this.
Or
Let's
a
get
current
this.
term.
Let's get this. Doug Peterson. Read that super chat swarming on the super chat. And I'm going to pull up this Doug Peterson.
Arthur Morgan with the super chat. He says, I think retaliation on the hit from behind on Shaair is hard to justify. Hypothetically, what would the conversation be if a Texas player was hurt intentionally due to that retaliation? I mean, some people would call it karma if somebody got hurt in the skirmish after they hit Trevor Lawrence and he was leaving the game. Evan Ingram's standing above him and just kind of starts pushing him.
Ingram did what I would want Dalton Schultz to do. So
exactly.
I have no problem with what Evan Ingram did, like none. So it is what it is. Listen to Doug Peterson's reaction to this whole thing. And I'm going to translate it because I'm going to tell you what he actually means.
Doug, can you update us on Trevor's condition, and were you able to talk to him at all post-game?
Yeah, I haven't talked to the docs yet. I did see him at halftime. He was moving around and everything, and we'll be fine. He'll obviously go into the protocol, but I haven't talked to him here after the game yet.
You've obviously been in this league a long time as a player and a coach. Where does that hit that he took rank for you in terms of dirty hits?
Well, look, it's a play that nobody wants to see in our league, obviously. Because you see what happens, after the fact, and it just escalates. And I've got a lot of respect for Coach Ryans. And I mean, I know he doesn't coach his team that way. We don't coach our team that way. And it's unfortunate. It really is. It's unfortunate. I'm just glad that, Trevor's going to be fine. He'll obviously be in the protocol, but it's just an unfortunate play.
Translation. I came back into the NFL because I thought this guy was supposed to be a franchise quarterback. In year one, I went to the playoffs despite his up and down performances. And now this sumbitch is getting me fired. Don't ask me about him. He's given me as many headaches as he had today. Times 1,000.
Yeah, he did not go up there and vehemently defend his guy or attack the situation like I feel like some coaches would have done.
And Trevor Lawrence, they're going to shut him down for the rest of the year, right? They want that number one pick, shut him down.
I would think so.
Right? He's going to be suspended for the Chiefs game. Can't have him blow Mahomes up, the Gremlin says.
I do. So the timing is probably going to have it so that he's missing the Dolphins game, because let's say he gets suspended this week. He puts his appeal in. The appeal would be finished, and we know exactly how long he's suspended ahead of the Dolphins. I mean, if he was out there patrolling, Tua might not be able to operate. Kind of unfortunate that he's missing the Dolphins game, more than likely.
You know what I thought was kind of funny? I thought it was funny how Trevor Lawrence did what Trevor Lawrence does. Like the Trevor Lawrence experience was on total display early in the game, where he threw an absolute dime on the sideline. It's like, man, I don't even know if Mahomes makes that throw. That was sick. And then his next two throws sail 20 feet over the guy's head. And then you hear Moose Johnston, who had a bad day yesterday. Let's be honest. He had a bad day. But Moose was like, yeah, you can tell, man, that this there's something wrong with this shoulder with Trevor Lawrence, because he's just sailing the ball over receivers' heads. It's like, have you watched this guy the last 3 years? That is one of the most consistent things, is that he's just sailing the ball on these dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Usually right after throwing the dime too.
Yeah, he is frequently missing throws that big time quarterbacks make. That's the Trevor Lawrence experience.
T says hit was bad, definitely, but last year I thought the hit on CJ from Q Williams was also bad. Put him out for 2 games, and he basically chokeslammed CJ. Yeah, I be honest, I don't think I didn't think I looked at that and thought it was the most egregious hit, but I do know that you do not want to get thrown down on that turf, and you do not want to get thrown down with Q Williams on you. That doesn't feel good.
No. I mean,
So-
to me, this all comes down to, I think he was going to make contact with him no matter what. But did he need to make contact with the braced up forearm? Probably not. And
So
that's probably where it ends up getting him the suspension.
So to put a bow on the show, I get all the points of view. I think DeMeco Ryans goes a little bit over the top when it comes to defending his guys. I think, although I don't think a lot of Texans fans think that if CJ Stroud were hit like that maybe the reaction should be similar. Matter of fact, one of the most common opinions today has been that the Texans offensive line wouldn't do anything if CJ Stroud got hit like that. And I'm not making this up. I feel like this has been one of the 5 most common opinions today on Reaction Monday. But I can understand why the Jags acted that way. And I can understand Azeez Al-Shaair, and I can understand Trevor Lawrence.
I feel like if that had happened to CJ Stroud, we would have just seen Will Anderson go into like a blind rage and like hurt someone seriously on the field. Like he played peacemaker yesterday, but like if they hurt his guy, it'd just be like, you'd see like 51 just like tear a player in half on the field.
The risque barber. If DeMeco says it's not dirty, case closed. The man played linebacker, not hopscotch. Maybe critics should try stepping on a field before throwing shade. There you go. There you go.
Like you and I both know.
Ardo right there.
Should have finished it off with a Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Man, football. Yeah. Put some cleats on before you say it. Appreciate you, my friend.
Risque Barber had to go club his dinner tonight, drag it back into his cave.
Get it going.
Hopefully the fires continued to burn throughout the day so he can cook the food.
He's a beast, dude. I don't I appreciate you. No, I understand. I understand the wussification of the game type of stuff. And everything, but I think we all agree they will not have Azeez Al-Shaair at least when they take on the Dolphins 13 days from today, and it could be longer than that.
Would that have made the commercial for like an NFL Big Hits VHS in the 90s? Would that have been one of the hits that makes the commercial?
Perhaps.
I think so.
Perhaps.
I think so. Those commercials love to have guys fencing. You go back and watch some of those trailers, like order it now, 1999. You got all sorts of guys just like frozen in time because they got massive brain injuries right there on the field. And then the DBs and the linebackers and the defensive ends are just like, yeah. They were selling them for $19.99 or $29.99, whatever it was, to send it right to your door.
Azeez is getting a lot online. I mean, look, it's online's a crazy place to be. So I would just stay away from it if I were him. But hey, I thought his statement, he handled it very well.
I thought his statement was excellent.
That was perfect. I think that he's very, very insightful guy when he speaks. I think he does a good job representing the squad. I think he plays the game outside of that hit and the punch on Roshan. I think he plays the way that DeMeco wants all the guys to play the game, and it is what it is at this point. It is what it is. Bad hit, bad reaction, but perfect time for a bye. Relax. Don't worry about it. Do your thing, and then we'll see how it goes. All good.
Okay.
Appreciate y'all for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along my channel, Cody's channel, S&L on my channel tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Stoots is on Wednesday. We're going to rotate from here on out. And this has been a special edition, live edition, Reaction Monday edition of S&L because the Texans are one of the top 3 stories in the country. Someone asked earlier, why y'all talking about this? What the hell do you think? If the Texans have a top 3 story, we're going to be talking about. We'll be breaking down the 2 deep. We'll be breaking down the practice squad. Damn it! So if the Texans are one of the national stories, you can best believe we're going for 2. We're going for 2. 1 in the morning and 1 today. Straight from the scene.
What am I always supposed to break down the 18th time the same Joe Mixon question's been asked to DeMeco Ryans?
Perhaps, my friend. For Cody Stoots, I'm Landry Locker. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Locker Room Stream post Week 13 edition. We're going to put a bow on the week and look at the state of the Texans coming up after the conclusion of Monday Night Football. Always remember, though, whether it was dirty, whether it wasn't, whether it was Trevor Lawrence's fault, whether it was Azeez Al-Shaair's fault, whether the Jaguars overreacted or they didn't overreact, and whether it's the wussification of America or not, when it comes to the Texas stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks, everybody.